Hello and welcome back to Programming with Python. In our last couple of sessions, we have looked and understood the concepts of loops. Now, consider a situation where you want to store the names of all the students present in a class. So from the knowledge we have so far, we do that by taking a variable for every single student. That is, let's say if there are 60 students present in the class, then I'd be taking 60 variables to store the names of all those students, isn't it? And this looks extremely lengthy. Why? Because now if I want to access the names of all the students, I should be accessing all those 60 variables, right? Now, what if I can somehow store the names of all those students in a single variable instead of using 60 variables? Then my task would become extremely easy, because now to access all the names, all I have to do is access that one single variable, right? So to help us with this task, there are a few structures in Python, and in today's session we will learn about one of those structures. And these structures, they are called as data structures because these structures help in managing our data, right? So now let's look at the first data structure that we have in Python, and this is called as list. So to store the values in this list, so like any other variable, I have to name the list. So let me name it as class underscore names and is equal to, and I have to use the square brackets, and within the square brackets I'll pass in all the values that I want to store. Now let's say these are the values that I want to store. So Modi, Rahul, and then I'll say Kohli, and then I'll say ABD, right? So let's say these are the student names. Now, one interesting feature about lists is that you can not only store multiple values, but you can also store values of different data types. That is, let's say I want to store the marks of all these students as well. So the marks of all these students would be in the form of integers or floating numbers, isn't it? So I can also do that just by adding those values, right? Not only this, so I can also store Boolean type, and I can also store another list within this list. So let's say this is my another list, which is the grades of the students. So I can store this list as well within the same list. So this is one interesting feature where we can store multiple values as well as values of different data types. Now, heading back to our example, now that we have stored the names of all the students, now let's say if I want to access the names of all the students, all I have to do is print, and I have to pass in the list. So let's see if you are able to get all the values. Yes, I got all the values present in this list. Now what if instead of accessing all the values, I only want to access an individual value? That is, now let's say I want to access this value Kohli, right? So to do that, we have a concept called as indexing. In indexing, the index of the first value starts at 0. The index of the next value would be 1. The next value would be 2. The index of the next value would be 3, and then so on. So now, if I want to access this value Kohli, all I have to do is take the name of this list, and within the square brackets, I have to pass in the index value, right? So now I want to access this value Kohli. The index of that value Kohli is 2. So I'll pass in this value 2. So now let's print it and check if that is the value that we are getting. So now if I observe the output, I got the value Kohli, right? There is also one other method to do this same task, and that is called as negative indexing. So in negative indexing, the index of the last value starts at -1, and the value towards the left -2, and towards the left -3, and then so on. That is, the index value decreases by 1. Whereas in positive indexing, the value increases by 1 towards the right side. In negative indexing, the value decreases by 1 towards the left side, right? So now if I want to access the same value Kohli, I can do that with the help of negative indexing. So take the name of this list, and within the square brackets, pass in the index value, which is -2. Now let's print and check if we are getting the same value. So now if I observe the output, I got the same values, right? So this is how you can use either positive indexing or negative indexing to access individual values present in this list. Now this is fine. But what if I want to access a group of values, and specifically successive group of values? That is, let's say I want to access these three values, Rahul, Kohli and ABD, but not Modi. That is from Rahul till ABD, right? So to do that, we have a concept called as slicing. So in slicing, what we do is take the name of this list, and within the square brackets, we have to mention the starting and the end value of that particular group that you're trying to access. That is, now let's say if these are the three values, then the starting index position, right? Rahul, the index of that is 1. So I have to mention 1. And then I have to type in colon, and I have to specify the last index position. Now here the last index position is 3. I'll type in 4 because this value 4 is not included. So the meaning of this is that, so within this list, I'm trying to access the values from 1 till 4, but excluding 4, right? So now if I print and observe the output, I should be getting those group of values. So if I observe the output, I got these three values, right? Now one interesting thing about slicing is that if I don't mention any starting value or end value, what happens is that by default, it will take this as the starting position of this list, which is 0, and the end position of this list, right? So now if I don't mention any starting and the end values, it will be taking all the values. Now if I print, I should be getting all the values present in this list. So if I observe, I'll be getting all the values, right? So by default, it will be taking the starting index position of this list and the end index position of this list, right? So this is how you can use slicing to access successive group of values, right? So now that we have looked at how to access the values in this list, now what if I want to change a particular value within this list? So to change any value within this list, again, I have to take in the name of this list, and within the square brackets, I have to mention the index position of the value that I want to change. Now let's say I want to change this value ABD. So the index of that is 3. So I'll mention 3 and I'll assign the value. So I can directly assign the value. Let's say I want to change it to Rohit, right? So now if I observe the output, that value must be changed to Rohit. Now let's see. So now if I observe this output, the value, that last value has been changed to Rohit, right? So this is how you can use, this is how you can change any value present in this list. Now this is fine. What if there's a new student that has been added to this class, right? Then you must add that name as well to this list. So to add any value to a list, we have a couple of functions. So the first one is append. So to use that function, I have to type in the name of the list dot append. And what append does is that it adds value at the end of this list. So if you want to add value at the end of the list, then you can directly use this append function. So within this append, within the brackets, I'll pass on the value that I want to add. Now let's say I want to add this name Aksar, right? So I'll say dot append and then I'll pass in this value within this brackets. So now let's check the output. So if I observe this output, this Aksar has been added at the end of this list. Now what if instead of adding at the end of this list, I want to insert at some other position, right? So to insert at any other position, we have a function called as insert. So I'll say dot insert, and within the brackets, the first thing I have to do is specify the index position of where I want to add that value. Now let's say if I want to add a new value at this index position 2. So I'll specify that index position 2 and then I'll pass in the value that I want to add, right? Now let's say Umesh is the name that I want to add. So now I observe that this value Umesh has been added at the index position 2, right? So now if you want to add at any index position, you can use this insert function. Or if you want to add at the end of this list, you can use this append function. Now this is fine. Now what if a student has got transferred to another college? So which means we have to remove that particular name from our list, isn't it? So let's say Rahul has been transferred. So to remove any value within this list, we have a function called as remove. Again, dot remove, and within the brackets I have to pass in the value that I want to remove. So that is, here I want to remove Rahul, so I'll pass in this value Rahul. Right? Now let's check if Rahul has been removed from this list. So if I observe this list, Rahul has been removed from this list. Right? Now what if instead of directly passing in the value, I want to remove the value at a specific index position, right? So to do that, we have a function called as pop, and within the brackets I have to pass in the index position of the value that I want to remove. Now let's say I want to remove this value Kohli, right? So the index position of that is 2, so I'll pass in 2. So now let's check if that value is removed. So I observe that Kohli has been removed from this list. And if we don't specify any index within this pop function, it will by default remove this last value present in this list, right? If you want to remove at any other specific position, then you have to mention that index position within this pop function, right? So this is how you can change, access and remove the values present in this list. Now this is fine. Now what if I want to go through all the values within this list? Right? So we know that we can access all the values present in this list using this, right? We'll pass in the index position. Now if you observe, I'm repeating the same statement over and over again, right? I'm repeating the same statement class names, and within the brackets I'm passing in the index value. So which means I can use loops to do the same task, right? So now to use the loops, let's take for loop first. I'll take in a variable I and I'll specify the range of values. Here the range of values will be this index values, right? So as the starting value is 0, I'll not mention any starting value, and the final value is 3. So to get the length of this list, right? So we have a function called as len to get the total number of values present in this list. So len, and then I'll type in the name of this list. So if I use this, I'll get the total number of values present in this list. So which means my I should range through all the values present in this list, right? So I'll say length and then pass in the name of this list, right? So which means my I value ranges through this whole list. That is the meaning here, right? From the starting to the length of this list, right? Now to access the value, we know we have to type in the name of this list, and within the brackets I have to pass in the index position, which is I, right? Now if I print it, I should be getting all the values present in this list. Let's also print this so that we can see the total number of values present in this list. So if I observe the output, right, so we got the total number of values, which is 4, and also each and every value present in this list, right? And there is one another way to do the same task. That is, I can say for take a variable name, type in, and then the name of this list. So this also results in the same thing. So first let's run it and check the output. So if I observe this also, through this method also we got all the values present in this list, right? So this works because here we are directly looping in through the values of this list. Instead of using the index, I'm directly going through the values. So my j, in the first iteration it will be pointing to Modi, and then in the next iteration it will be pointing to Rahul. So if I directly print j, I'm directly accessing the values, right? So if you want to directly use the values, you can use this method, or if you want to loop through using the index position, you can use this method, right? So this is how you can loop through values using the for loop. The same can be done with the while loop as well. Now try to do with the while loop so that it will be a bit of practice for you to understand how to loop through all the values present in this list, right? Now there are few other functions that help us managing the data within this list. Now let's say I have stored these names of these students, that's fine, but I want these names to be in a sorted order, that is in alphabetical order, right? Which means my ABD should come first, Kohli should come second, this third, and this fourth, right? So to do that, we have a function called as sort. So dot sort, and if I do this, all the values present in this list will be sorted. Now if the values are strings, then it will be sorted according to the alphabetical order. If the values are numbers, they will be sorted in the increasing order. So now let's check if that is the case. Sorry, I'm printing this sort method, so that is why I didn't get any output. Let's try to print the list. Print of class underscore names. So if I do that, we observe that all the values present in this list are sorted alphabetically. Right. So now these are few methods that you can use to manage the data within your lists. Now, what if I have two lists and I want to join those two lists? That is, let's say, so this is one list where I have names, and let's say I have another list, class names 1, and I have names of other students. Let's say Dhoni, Bumrah, Jack. Now these are all these students are present within the same class, but they are in two different lists, right? So there is no point in using two different lists, right? Which means I have to join those two lists. So to join the two lists, you can directly do that using a plus operator. Now let's say I want to join all these lists within this names. So all I have to do is class underscore names is equal to class underscore names plus class underscore names 1. Right? So the plus operator directly adds all these values together in a list and assigns to this list. Right? So now if I print class underscore names, so the values within these two lists should be joined. So if we observe the output, all the values within these two lists are joined. Right? So this is how you can add one list to the other list using the plus operator. So there are a couple other functions as well. So but these functions are enough to operate or to manage the data within this list. So this is all about the data structure list. In our next session, we'll be looking at other data structures in Python. Thank you.